What if I told you that right now, sitting in your kitchen, or maybe already in your dog's bowl, there is a food that your dog absolutely loves? A food that makes their tail wag the second they smell it. A food you've probably given them dozens of times, maybe hundreds of times, thinking you were doing something kind, something loving. And what if I told you that this food, the one your dog begs for, the one that makes them look at you like you're the greatest human alive, is quietly, slowly doing damage you cannot see, not immediately, not in a dramatic way, but over time, in ways that vets are now starting to connect to serious health problems in dogs. And the scariest part is, most dog owners have no idea, because nobody warns you about this food. It's not on any danger list. It doesn't come with a warning label. In fact, most of the time it's treated as completely normal, even harmless. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to look at what you feed your dog very differently. And I promise you, this is not clickbait. What I'm about to share with you comes from years of studying dog behavior, dog psychology, and the hidden connections between what dogs eat and how they think, feel, and behave. This is real, and your dog needs you to hear it. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Dogs are not just driven by hunger. That's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about their pets. We think dogs eat because they're hungry. Simple, right? But that's not actually how it works. Dogs eat because of emotion, because of smell, because of association, because of what a certain food makes them feel in that moment. And this is where things start to get complicated. You see, when your dog begs for a certain food, when they go absolutely crazy for it, that reaction isn't just physical appetite, it's psychological craving. And there is a massive difference between the two. Physical appetite is your dog's body saying, "I need fuel." Psychological craving is your dog's brain saying, "I need that feeling again." And the foods that trigger the strongest psychological cravings in dogs are often, not always, but often, the ones that are doing the most harm underneath the surface. Think about it this way. Have you ever noticed that your dog seems almost addicted to certain foods? That they'll ignore their regular kibble the moment they smell something else? That they'll stare at you, follow you around, whine, paw at you, all for just a small piece of something? That behavior is telling you something important. And most dog owners misread it completely. Most owners think, "My dog loves this, so it must be good for them." That's the natural human response. We associate love and excitement with goodness, but here's what most dog owners don't realize. A dog's excitement over a food has almost nothing to do with whether that food is healthy for them. Almost nothing. Dogs don't have the ability to evaluate nutrition. They can't look at something and think, this is high in sodium, probably. Not good for my kidneys. They don't work that way. They work on smell, on taste, on texture, on emotional memory. And the foods that score highest on those four things are very often the foods that are the most dangerous for them long-term. Now, I want to introduce you to a concept that changed the way I think about dog feeding forever. It's called the reward loop. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your dog's cravings the same way again. Here's how it works. Your dog smells something. Their brain releases a small amount of dopamine, which is the feel-good chemical. They eat it. The taste and texture confirm the pleasure signal. Their brain says, "That was good, remember that." Next time they smell it, the dopamine hits even before they eat it. Just the smell is enough to trigger excitement. And over time, that food becomes associated not just with taste, but with emotional reward, with happiness, with you, with love. This is the reward loop. And it's the same basic mechanism behind human food cravings. It's the same reason people can't eat just one chip. It's powerful. It's real. And in dogs, because their sense of smell is thousands of times stronger than ours, this loop becomes incredibly intense, incredibly fast. A dog can become psychologically locked onto a food after just a few exposures. And once that happens, breaking that pattern is hard, not just for the dog, but emotionally for the owner too, Because when you take away something your dog loves, it feels cruel. And this is where things get dangerous. Because dog owners, out of love, keep giving the food. The dog keeps showing excitement. The owner interprets that excitement as happiness and health. And the cycle continues, even as the damage quietly builds. So what is this food? I know you're waiting for that. And I'll tell you. But I need you to understand something first, because the name alone won't help you. Understanding the why, the psychology, the biology, the hidden mechanism, that's what will actually change how you protect your dog. And we are almost there. There is a category of food that sits right at the intersection of everything I just described. It scores incredibly high on smell. It scores incredibly high on taste. It creates an almost instant reward loop in a dog's brain. It's given by owners constantly, usually as a treat, a sign of affection, a little something extra. And it has a hidden effect on a dog's body that most vets are only now beginning to fully understand. That category is ultra-processed human food, specifically the salty, fatty, heavily flavored variety. Things like chips, processed meats, cheese, snacks, fast food scraps, certain crackers, flavored popcorn, and the one that probably surprised you the most, given how innocent it seems, deli meats. Specifically highly processed deli meats and sausages. Now, before you say, I already knew processed food was bad for dogs, hold on. Because what I'm talking about goes deeper than you think. Much deeper. And what I'm about to tell you is the part that most dog owners, and even some vets, don't fully connect. It's not just about the fat. It's not just about the salt. It's not just about the artificial flavors. Though all of those are real problems. The real issue, the one that operates silently and invisibly, is what these foods do to a dog's gut microbiome. And when I say that, I mean the entire ecosystem of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms living in your dog's digestive system. That ecosystem is not just responsible for digestion, it is directly connected to your dog's brain, through what scientists now call the gut-brain axis. Let me say that again. Your dog's gut and your dog's brain are in constant communication. The gut doesn't just process food, it produces neurotransmitters, it regulates mood, it influences anxiety, levels, energy levels, focus, and emotional stability. When the gut is healthy, the brain tends to be calmer, more balanced, more resilient. When the gut is disrupted, when the balance of bacteria is thrown off by repeated exposure to ultra-processed foods, something very specific happens to a dog's behavior. They become more anxious, more reactive, more likely to bark at nothing, more likely to show signs of what we often call problem behavior. Destructive chewing, excessive whining, difficulty settling, aggression that seems to come from nowhere, and, here's the one that breaks owners' hearts, separation anxiety. That desperate, panicked response when you leave the house. That is not just a training issue. In many dogs, it has a physiological root, and that root often leads back to what's happening in the gut. And what most dog owners don't realize is that the foods their dogs beg for the hardest, the ones that create the most intense reward loop, are precisely the ones that do the most damage to the gut microbiome. Because ultra-processed foods are designed, yes, designed, to override normal appetite signals, to make you or your dog want more even when the body has had enough. The artificial flavor compounds, the excess sodium, the specific fat to sugar ratios, these aren't accidents. They are formulations built to maximize craving, and a dog's neurochemistry is far more susceptible to these effects than ours is. So when your dog is going crazy for that piece of sausage or that salty cracker, they are not just hungry. They are experiencing a neurologically amplified craving, driven by a food that is actively disrupting the very system that regulates their emotions. And you, out of love, keep giving it to them. Not because you're a bad owner, because nobody told you this was happening. Now here's where things get even. More interesting from a behavioral standpoint. Dogs that are regularly fed ultra-processed foods don't just become physically compromised. Their learning changes. Their ability to respond to training becomes harder, not because they're stubborn, but because a disrupted gut-brain axis impairs what behaviorists call emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is the foundation of every single behavior you want from your dog. Calm greetings, loose leash walking, settling on command. Recall, all of it depends on a dog that can regulate their own emotional state in the moment. When that regulatory capacity is compromised, training feels impossible. Owners get frustrated, dogs get more anxious, and often, owners try to comfort the dog by giving them the very food that's making the problem worse. Because that food makes the dog happy for a moment, and that moment of happiness feels like connection. But that's not the real reason the dog calms down when you give them that food. The real reason is that the craving response is momentarily satisfied, releasing dopamine. It is the same as giving a crying person a cigarette. It doesn't solve anything. It just briefly quiets the system that's already been compromised. Here's the part that I want you to really sit with. This is not about perfection. This is not about never giving your dog anything fun or delicious. Dogs should have joy in their lives. Food is one of the ways they experience joy. I am not telling you to take away all treats forever and feed your dog nothing but dry kibble. That is not the point. The point is awareness and substitution. Because here's the beautiful thing that dog psychology teaches us. The reward loop doesn't care what's in the loop. It cares about the structure of the loop, which means that if you replace a harmful food with a whole, natural alternative that still scores high on smell and taste and texture, your dog's brain will eventually lock onto that new food with just as much intensity as the old one. It just takes a little time and consistency. Dogs go absolutely wild for things like small pieces of cooked chicken breast, unseasoned, of course, plain boiled egg, fresh blueberries. Certain dogs love cucumber, watermelon, or even carrot sticks with a passion you wouldn't expect. These foods don't disrupt the gut. They support it. They don't override appetite signals. They work with them. And over time, they contribute to a calmer, more emotionally stable dog. Now let me tell you about a real pattern I've seen repeated dozens of times. An owner comes to me with a dog that they describe as impossible, reactive on the leash, can't settle at night, barks constantly, has moments of seemingly random aggression. The owner has tried 3 different trainers. They've watched every YouTube video. They've bought every gadget, and nothing works. The first thing I do is ask about diet. And almost every single time, the picture that emerges is the same. Somewhere in that dog's daily food intake, there is a regular rotation of ultra-processed treats, cheap flavored chews, that are more chemical than food. Bits of the owner's meals shared out of love and habit, the same salty, fatty scraps day after day. Not in enormous quantities, just enough. Just enough to keep the gut disrupted. Just enough to keep the neurological system slightly off balance. Just enough to make everything else harder. And when we clean that up, when we shift even 60 or 70% of the treats toward whole food alternatives, something remarkable happens within 2 to 4 weeks. The dog is not magically transformed, but the baseline anxiety comes down. The reactivity softens slightly. Sleep improves. The dog becomes just a little bit more reachable. And from there, training actually starts to work. Because now you're not fighting against a neurological system that's constantly dysregulated. You have a window. And in dog training, that window is everything. The thing is, most owners never connect those dots. They never think to look at the treat jar as the source of the behavioral problem. Because the dog loves those treats. And how could something a dog loves that much be the thing that's hurting them? That's the lie this food tells. That's the trap it sets. And it works on dog owners the same way it works on dogs. Through the feeling of love, through the look in their eyes, through the wagging tail, through the relationship that food has become a symbol of. But love is not just what feels good in the moment. Real love, real care for your dog, is understanding what they actually need. And what they need is not the food that creates the most excitement. What they need is the food that supports the body and mind they live in every single day. Here's the realization I want you to walk away with. Your dog's behavior, their anxiety, their reactivity, their ability to learn, their emotional stability, none of it exists in isolation from their biology. And their biology is being shaped quietly and constantly by what you put in their bowl and what you hand them as a treat. The two are not separate. The mind and the gut and the behavior are one system. And when you treat them as one system, everything changes. The dog that seemed untrainable becomes reachable. The dog that seemed broken reveals itself as a dog whose nervous system was simply never given the conditions it needed to settle. And the owner who felt like a failure realizes they weren't failing at training. They were just missing one piece of the picture, a piece that nobody told them to look for. You now know to look for it, and that changes everything for your dog. If this opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, share this with someone who has a dog. They need to hear this too. And if you want to go deeper into dog psychology, into understanding why your dog does what they do and how to actually connect with them on a level that changes behavior from the inside out, there is so much more here for you. Every video on this channel is built on the same principle: understanding the dog in front of you, not just managing them. Your dog is not a problem to solve. They are a relationship to understand. And you're already doing the most important thing. You're paying attention.